right, before we start, Amy, I want you to tell your you reminded me about Keith wanting you to come to the conference. Can you tell your glam makeup story? Because I just think it's really funny and I think it would be a good start to our afternoon.
My what story?
Your glam makeup story when the glam squad came before.
So it's appropriate. So Keith and I were just in Washington D.C. over the weekend. And I had lots of horrible memories coming back. Um, uh, I was supposed to be speaking at a conference that was going to be videotaped last year in Washington D.C. and made the mistake slash horrible life decision of booking to have somebody come to the hotel and do my hair and makeup in the morning. Um, the makeup lady had me look at my makeup, and I said, "Nope, all good." And then she kept going, and I didn't know what she had done until she left. And then I whip out, which like so many mistakes there. I whip out my compact and look, and I was like, oh no, oh boy, oh no. And I have to get to this conference, right? Where, by the way, they didn't have a videographer or a photographer as promised. But in any event, I would say that I suggested that I looked a bit like an off duty drag queen. And Keith's helpful feedback was, "Oh no, you don't look off duty." Um, so yes, it was not good, and I had all these flashbacks actually just over the weekend. So yes, this is why you should pay attention to your style and not try to be someone that you are not, because then you end up with this much eye makeup on, and it is not a good look for anyone.
I honestly don't believe that that sounds like anything I would say. So I'm going to say that that didn't happen. But interestingly, we also had another event where essentially the same thing happened, but replaced Washington, D.C. with um, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And you would have, we went to a conference this year, a year later, and opened up the conference thing. And there's Amy all done up in her interesting get up.
Curly hair and
right
like
in
they
the
had
book,
put
right in the
makeup
booklet
on
for the
the
conference.
trowel.
So there you
Never
go.
again. Never again.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking, if you haven't figured that out already, about how you can up level in 2025 in three key areas: your image, your finances, and your career. So I'm going to moderate today to keep us all on track. My name is Keith Spirrell. If you don't know me, I'm co-owner of Appachromatic. We are a boutique professional services firm in Chicago that develops teams, leaders, and lawyers across the US and Europe. And before we get to our speakers, I want to invite you all to weigh in. So I'm going to go ahead and share a slide here that says, what word describes how you're feeling in 2025? Now, as you're doing that, I'm going to just go over a few of the ground rules for today. So we're just asked that anything that's brought up and discussed that you keep confidential with respect to other attendees so that they can remain anonymous. That way you can feel free and open to ask any of the questions that you may have. After each of the three speakers, we'll have time for Q&A, and we can do that either live, or if you have something that you don't really want your name mentioned, you can just privately chat me and I can bring it up as we move into that Q&A section. Don't be surprised if I'm rude and cut off the speakers, especially Amy, because we only have so much time and we want to make sure we get to the Q&A. So it isn't just me being my normal interruptive self. It is my job and duty today to be rude. Finally, I invite you to think of this whole conversation in terms of what one or two items you'll take away from each speaker to implement right now, rather than just making a big, massive to-do list that you never really get back to and are unable to implement in any way. So before we cut to that, I am going to check out what everyone thinks about up-leveling in 2025. And that is this. Y'all see that? Amy, you seeing that? All right. So what describes how you're feeling about 2025? Inspired, focused, confused, giddy, anxious, determined, apprehensive, pessimistic, focused, curious, inspired, tired. That's a pretty good mix of that's a pretty good mix. That makes sense, and it seems to reflect what the entire world is seeing right now. So I'm going to start by introducing the speakers, last speaker first, and then we'll move into the first speaker. So our last speaker today is going to be Amy Gardner. She's a former big law litigator, a partner in a mid-sized firm, and a dean of students at a top 5 law school. Today, Amy and our team at Apochromatic work with attorneys to help them advance and transition in their careers. Because we also work with teams and leaders within law firms and other corporations, we see the legal market and advancement decisions from all angles. Our second speaker today will be Jessica Medina. She's an accredited financial counselor who specializes in creating financial strategies for lawyers looking to make a change. And after graduating from Columbia Law School, she was fortunate enough to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt and be a single mom of twins. And she started her career practicing in big law in Washington, D.C., and then practicing at the SEC. Finally, but not least, our first speaker today is Estelle Winsett. Estelle is a former lawyer, assistant dean of career services, and director of professional development for a Memphis law firm. Today, Estelle is a professional stylist and speaker, empowering attorneys and executives through developing their personal style. So, without further ado, Estelle, what do we need to do to up level in 2025?
Gosh, so I was trying to come up with a 10-minute presentation, so I'm going to just go quickly. But I think thinking about 2025, what you want to do is be intentional with your style. And that means having a wardrobe that meets 3 different criteria. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oh, and by the way, I think I saw my oldest son walking through. I got boys everywhere. Like they like to come through my office. It's like Grand Station, Central Station. I don't know what's happening, but you may see some hopefully fully clothed boys in the background. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just quickly go over it. So I think that what I was trying to think of the most impactful way you could work on your style for 2025, I think it's about having your signature style, because you want to be known, remembered, and liked, because those are like the 3 factors in growing business and in having your personal brand. And in doing so, like, just to create your unique style blueprint, you want to know how, what are your style preferences? They evolve over time. If you have something from Ann Taylor 30 years ago, may not be your style anymore. Like these things tend to like kind of stay in our closet because we sometimes just leave it in there thinking, well, I might need it one day. Or you have the things hanging in your closet that you bought on sale that you hate, and the tags are still hanging on it for years ago. But often as women, we don't sit down and think about, what do I like now? How has my style changed? And how can I create a next level of vision of that style and work towards, creating that in my closet? And the only way to do that, to make a change, is to actually be very intentional and see what is my like roadmap. But the one topic, since we only have 10 minutes, that I wanted to talk about is one that I feel like I'm seeing a lot with my clients, and some of you might be able to relate to it now, and that is trying to understand how to dress your body shape. As women, we go through a lot of different hormonal changes. Right now, I'm the lucky privilege of going through perimenopause. So I don't know if anyone else is in that boat, but things shift, bodies change, right? And so it's really hard if you don't know how to dress your body shape and if it's changed over time. So the other thing is post-pandemic, 42% of Americans reported undesired weight gain. Like, that's happened, right? And so the things that, or you could have lost a lot of weight and what's in your closet is not fitting anymore. So what I'm going to talk about real quick is just kind of what happens when we don't dress our body shape. And I like to use celebrities because they, people know them. And so I like to kind of think about the Jessica Simpsons. Who remembers this Jessica Simpson? I mean, maybe I'm showing my age when she wore I think they were calling them mom jeans back then, but they weren't her favorite, wasn't her best look, made her look a lot bigger. So with Jessica Simpson, she has a shape where she has a, larger chest and smaller bottom. So she's what I would call the smaller on bottom shape. Well, here, because she's wearing something really fitted in her jeans, she looks kind of like, she looks out of proportion. Sometimes you've seen people who have a larger chest and smaller at the bottom, and they kind of look like they're going to topple over because they just don't look balanced. So here's an example of where she's wearing something that actually fits her shape. Because she has a smaller bottom half, what she needs to do is balance out her top half. So when she wears these boot cut flare jeans, what she's doing is she's creating visual volume at the bottom, which balances out her top half. And so you can see she's in proportion. And there are a lot of different body shapes, and none of them are right or wrong. It's just a matter of understanding what yours is and finding a way to dress so that you are in proportion, or visually you look in proportion. So another example is Beyonce. And Beyonce doesn't ever look bad. So this isn't necessarily, and I'm not trying to make her look bad in any way. But one thing you can say here is that, like, she's someone who is smaller on top. So like where her shorts hit on her right there is the widest part of her leg. It's not going to be the most flattering shape for her. But now she dresses where she is adding more visual volume to the top of her body and kind of minimizing her lower half. That way she looks in proportion. So here you can see, like, by having this the white color up top, it's like drawing the eye up, and she's got some black at the bottom, which is where she is a little bit larger, and it kind of minimizes it. She also has a really defined waist. So she's wearing something like that where her waist is defined and she looks in proportion. And so overall, the goal when you're trying to figure out how to dress your body shape is to create the visual look of an hourglass, because like I said, that looks the most proportionate. And the reality though is only 8% of us have an actual hourglass shape, but that's what we want to see, because it just looks, it's something that's like, it looks, being proportionate just looks more pleasing to the eye. Everything looks balanced. So that's the goal. When I'm working with my clients, I'm trying to figure out what body shape they have. And if they are smaller on the bottom, I want to add visual volume. If they're smaller on the top, I want to add visual volume up there. And so that's just a trick to, when you're wearing clothes, to work for your body shape and not against it. I know I went really quickly, but I just wanted to kind of share that. And I did want to show an example of some clients just so you can kind of see what that means. Like, this is a client that I had, and you can see she's wearing like what we learned in law school, which is the boxy kind of a silhouette. But here she's wearing something that's really fitted and tailored to her body. And you can tell she actually looks like 10 pounds lighter. It was done like 2 months later, but she's wearing clothes that fit her body and she looks more polished and put together. And then here's another example of Amanda, where she's wearing a more tailored blazer, and she just looks more in proportion. When you dress that way, then that is the end result. So as I mentioned earlier, there's 3 factors that are important to having a style that you love. And 1 is knowing your style preferences, 2 is knowing how to dress your body shape, and then 3 is knowing your best colors. So I just talked about body shape today, but there are other factors, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. That was a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, we'll hold questions for the end, right, Amy?
Sorry.
I don't know.
Strict, man.
We'll hold
I know,
questions for the end, and we'll move
whip.
right into Jessica.
Okay.
Beautiful. Does that mean that I get Estelle's time? Like, can I just absorb her extra 4 minutes? No, it's
I
okay.
think you did. I don't think I reserved those. No, you didn't.
Amazing. Well, all of my clients know that as an accredited financial counselor, I love putting together financial strategies for them. PowerPoint is actually my love language. So when I am meeting with my clients, I put together PowerPoints of their entire financial picture, the roadmap to whatever transitions they might be planning for, making sure they're meeting their short and long-term goals. But I controlled myself for this webinar because I wanted to just be able to talk with you guys about what might be coming up in your financial journey. A lot of this is highly personalized. That's why I love working with folks one-on-one, because I really get to get into your numbers, get into your values, get into your career path, your life path, what's most important to you. And I find that personalized service is really so important in the personal finance world, because there's a lot of number stuff out there, but it might not be the best fit for you. And so with the task of figuring out, if you have 1 hour to really up-level your finances in 2025, how would you want to spend that hour? I don't know all of you. I know some of you, and I know some of your financial situations, but I don't know all of you. And there's actually one strategy that works for everyone, and that is creating a financial decision-making framework for you, right? So there is no beautiful, universal financial move that everyone should be making in 2025, because so much of this is personal. But if you can figure out how you want to approach your money decisions in 2025 and make a commitment that you're going to use that approach every time you have to make a financial decision in 2025, that is what is going to really add some intentionality and put some very good alignment in terms of your financial decisions and where you want to be at the end of 2025. And so when I'm working with my clients on creating their own financial decision-making framework, what kinds of questions do I want to ask? I want to ask questions that will allow them to regret proof their financial decisions, right? There are so many things outside of our control, and we've already experienced some of that this year. I anticipate we will experience a lot of it in 2025, things that feel very outside of our control. That's not the stuff that you want to be using to make your financial decisions. You want to use the best information that you have, and you want to feel good about the way that you came to your decision. And so whenever I'm creating a framework like this for my clients, we figure out what's most important to you in terms of your values. You want to make sure you're putting your financial resources there. How will a financial decision affect your overall picture? Will it force you to go slower on some goals that are very important to you? Will it allow things to go faster? Is your financial decision going to affect anyone else in your life that maybe also is involved with your finances? Do you want to have a conversation with them before you take on an obligation or make a financial move? And then lastly, of course, we do want to run numbers. And if you need help running numbers, I love running numbers. That's one of my favorite things to do. But I also love having the conversation with you about how those numbers make you feel. And I think that sometimes when we are looking at financial decisions, we don't pay so much attention to the emotional side of it. And what I find with a lot of my very analytical clients is they can't even touch the emotions until they've run the numbers. And then we can see how the numbers make them feel. And then we can actually have a conversation around that and then go back to the numbers once we've decided how they feel about everything. So if you're planning for a transition, if you're wondering whether you should get into a home, if you're wondering whether you should sell your home and move out of the country, all of those things are big financial decisions, but they also have emotional components. So when you're coming up with your framework, yes, run your numbers, but also make sure that you pass it through an emotional filter to make sure that you really feel very good about the decisions that you're making. Now, I didn't want to just give you, hey, the best thing that you can do is think about your money more. So here are some tips of what you might want to be thinking about for 2025 in terms of money stuff. I always think about at a baseline, we want to make sure that we are creating financial security. And so we want to make sure that we have, right? Everybody talks about an emergency fund. I think an emergency fund can sometimes feel like a very amorphous topic. So when I'm working with my clients, the way that I approach emergency funds is I start with figure out what a base spending plan is for you and your family. And by a base spending plan, I mean, what is the bare bones spending plan, right? What do you absolutely have to pay? What do you need to survive? And then build up your 3 to 6 months of that. Okay, you then build up if you have unstable income, let's say you are a solo practitioner or you're self-employed, you might want to build up to a year, depending on the stability of your income. But base it on that bare bones spending plan to start, because that's really how you would be behaving in an emergency. It's a much more approachable number, and it's worth it to make that plan. Because if you have your bare bones spending plan, if something happens next year that throws you off your rocker, if you are thinking of making a transition, maybe taking a self-paid sabbatical, and you want to know how long you can take, or somebody puts you into a position where you have to go through a job transition, you will already have the plan, and it will not be an emotional decision of where do you need to cut, what changes do you have to make. So this is really important work to do on the front end to allow you to quickly implement that plan and feel comfortable and safe while you are making all of these transitions. Where should you put your emergency fund? If anyone on the call does not already have a high yield savings account, please go open one. I can't tell you how many of my clients have their cash sitting at their brick and mortar bank earning 0.02% every month. High yield savings accounts are very easy to open. Some great places where you can open one. Amex has one earning 4% every month. Marcus by Goldman Sachs is another one. You can go to Capital One. They're a great bank and they're earning 4%. So before the Federal Reserve drops interest rates again, you can still make some good money in your high yield savings accounts. And that's a great place to park your emergency fund. Once you have created that security, we want to be creating some more opportunity for you. So, what do you want to make sure you do before the end of the year? Use up any FSA money that you have. If you have a flexible spending account and you have money that's sitting there, please figure out what you can use it toward. Some of the plans really require you to use up that money by the end of the year. Some of them have rollover. It really does depend on how your benefits are structured, and you want to check with your employer if you have access to that kind of stuff. But you also want to make sure you're spending that money because you cannot necessarily get it back. To the extent that you've been making contributions to retirement accounts, if you haven't maxed those out and you are in a financial position to do so, this is a great time to add some more into those retirement accounts. Time in those accounts is the most powerful thing. So we like maxing out if we can. But I have to tell you, sometimes when I'm meeting with my clients, they're maxing out the retirement accounts, but they're continuing to put money on high interest credit cards and not paying them off every month. So you really want to evaluate your entire financial situation. Don't assume that, oh, the rule of thumb is I have to max out my retirement every month. You want to be in the financial position to do so. And sometimes taking a look at your entire financial portfolio can help you see where you should be focusing your attention. Also, review your interest rates. We talked about high yield savings rates, right? So check the savings rate of whatever savings account you might have lying around, but also check the interest rate on your mortgage if you have one. We've had a lot of interest rate drops over this year. We anticipate we might even have some more. And so refinancing that debt can really save you a lot of money that's just going to banks. So I like to have that money in my pocket as opposed to sending it to somebody else's. You also want to review the interest rates on your credit cards. If you are carrying credit cards that have particularly high interest rates, you might be able to restructure those into different types of debt. You might be able to open some 0% credit cards to kind of knock that principal out without paying the 25 to 29% of interest every month. This is definitely something I work with my clients on in terms of coming up with the best debt repayment strategy for them that takes into account everything else that they have going on, but also tries to save them as much money along the way. And then in terms of end of year deals, my rule is always yes, look for those end of year deals, but only buy things that you were planning on buying. End of year deals are not necessarily for things that you didn't already have. That's not saving your money, right? That's just spending new money. But if there are things that were already on your list that you wanted to pick up, end of the year is a great time to pick it up. If you were planning on buying a car, December is a great month to get a car. And this year might be a really good one to get a car. Same thing with home appliances. Look for those Black Friday deals, but look for them with your list in front of you of the stuff that you already know that you need, right? That's an important piece of paper to take with you. And then lastly, make sure that you have picked out your top financial goal for 2025. Be intentional about it. Maybe open a completely separate high yield savings account to save up for whatever that goal is so you can see the growth as the year goes. I find that my clients really appreciate being able to easily track their progress toward those goals. And a little physical separation goes a long way in making sure that you maintain the motivation and you can see when you've achieved that goal. If anyone has questions about federal student loans, I have to do an entire hour training on student loan repayment strategies and given all the changes that are going on. So if you have those questions, drop them into the chat or send them over to Keith and I'm happy to try to tackle them, but there's no way I can get through all of that in the 3 minutes that I have left. But so lastly, if you are planning on making a big transition in 2025 and you are looking for some help in figuring out how the money piece is going to work out, that's pretty much my specialty. So I'm filling my spots for 2025 right now for clients who are going to be making big moves. And if it's something that you're interested in getting help with, I would love to help you strategize on it.
All right, so you're rocking it. The style is in order. You've got your financial goal for 2025 and your safety account is in order. Amy, what about the career?
I was so busy sitting here taking notes off of everything. I have like a whole list. All right. So I'm going to just share with you 5 things that I think you really want to have in mind as you think about 2025. But as Keith said, you should pick one of those. For those of you I don't know, my name is Amy Gardner, and I use the M on everything because there are a whole bunch of other Amy Gardners in the world, it turns out. And I'm pretty sure that at the hotel I just stayed at in DC, they thought I was the Amy Gardner who was a reporter for the Washington Post, which unfortunately I'm not. I live in Chicago. I came here for law school, and other than stints in DC, I've been here ever since. And one of my favorite things to do is to travel. So that's just a little bit about me. All right. On Monday, I don't know how many of you saw this, but law.com sent out a headline. And as soon as I saw it come across in my notifications in my email, I was like, oh, here we go. So the headline was, and this is the exact quote, ballooning workloads, dearth of advancement opportunities, prime in-house attorneys to pull exit hatch. And I think we all hear all the time that people in big law firms and mid-sized law firms and small firms are not necessarily happy campers. But I think a lot of attorneys we talk with who are in firms or in-house think, I just need to stay in-house, or I just need to get in-house and it will all be better. And unfortunately, that is not the case. So I just want to flag some of these stats for you. For those of you who are thinking about making a move next year, so you understand it is not just the grass is greener, and that just being in-house will solve things. So Axiom did this huge study interviewing 300 legal professionals, and their report predicted, again, a direct quote, a wave of attrition will hit legal departments in 2025. And they had 54% of respondents reported low job satisfaction, which is up 12 percentage points from a year ago. 70% of respondents said to advance in their careers, they have to change employers, which is a 13% increase from a year ago. And 81% of respondents said their legal departments lack the necessary staffing to do their jobs effectively. And 39% of these in-house lawyers said they're experiencing severe stress and burnout. I also looked at some other recent articles. One said that 2/3 of companies that are planning to hire a new GC next year expect that they have to go outside of the company because they are realizing that they don't necessarily have people in the pipeline who have the skills that being a GC now requires. So with all of that as background, what can you actually do? So as Jessica mentioned, we always want to focus on the things that we can control. So there are 5 that I want to suggest to you so that you can up-level in 2025. So the first is really focusing on your mindset, or minding your mindset, if that makes it easier for you to remember. What we often see, particularly with women lawyers, is that they need to decide that they deserve better before they can actually have a job or a life outside work that is better for them. And that might be that you need to move where you live, or change where you live. It might be that you need to change jobs. It might be that you need to start spending more time on with your family, or more time on your personal interests. Whatever it is, you have to decide that you're worth it. And without that mindset shift, it can be really hard to make a change, even in a new year, that's going to stick. I saw a quote recently that you can't change your life until you change your mindset. And I think that we have seen that with our clients as well, that when we are able to work with people on mindset, it makes a huge difference. So one thing that you can do to help you with that mindset now is reflect on your wins from 2024 and your missteps, right? Process what has happened and what has not happened for you over this last year, and then focus on improving your mindset for the new year. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to get clear on your why, your strengths, what you want, and the narrative that helps you tie your whole career together. And that it may be that you're changing jobs. It may be that you want to stay in your job, but you want to join a board, or maybe you want to stay in your job but advance. Either way, all of those things are helpful for you to have that clarity. What we find again and again is that when lawyers understand their why, they are much better able to handle the normal shifts that come at them in a new year. So even if your day job is one that does not really align with your purpose right now, figuring out what your purpose is, for example, and having that clarity means that you can then find ways outside work that feed that purpose. And it results in much higher career satisfaction, and much better results at work. In terms of strengths, there's the Gallup Strengths Finder assessment, all that stuff, but really understanding and having clarity about what you have to offer is much more than taking one assessment, right? It's figuring out what you bring to a role, what you bring to any environment. Again, it can be a board, it can be whatever it is that you want to do, and then understanding that narrative of your career and how it ties together. And this is particularly important given that finding about companies looking outside, right? I think if we are in an organization, whether a law firm or in-house, where we plan to advance, we think we don't have to do that work because everybody knows us. But the reality is that whether you want to be or not, in 2025, you may be moving to different organizations. So that story is really important. So that's that getting clarity is number 2. Number 3 is to make a plan. You cannot just leave these things to chance. And I think a lot of speakers do us all a disservice because they talk about how they just slid through their career and ta-da, now they're managing partner. And that, having worked with a lot of folks that we all see on ABA publications and things like that, that is not remotely true, first of all. But secondly, that is not a strategy, right? Hope is not a strategy. So think about, what is it that you want? Where do you want to be? Where are you now? And what's in the way? What gaps need to be filled? What skills do you need to get? What things do you need to get experience with? And this is, again, it's more than just, I need to spend a weekend on my resume. Like, that's great, but you need to have a plan for how you want to get to that true job satisfaction. So number 3 is make a plan. And then number 4 is to get support. Frankly, the CEOs, managing partners, all those types of folks have coaches, mastermind groups, kitchen cabinets, whatever you want to call it, or whatever form you want that support to take. But whether you get support with getting clarity, with your plan, with your mindset, or all of the above, it can also take you need to get that support. That can also take the form of getting real feedback at work, which is often something that doesn't happen and that you have to be really intentional about going and seeking out. The other piece of this, of course, is that besides getting real feedback, you need to make sure that you're getting support in terms of a kick in the pants and accountability and encouragement. I know it can be really hard when you are in a super demanding job to feel like, oh, I also have to get support to be able to get to the next level. I've done everything myself to this point. Why would I need that? And it's that whole what got you here won't get you there, as well as that you don't have to be alone, right? You don't have to go through this alone. And again, that support can take lots of different forms, but think about how you can get the support that you need in 2025 and be intentional then about fostering that support. And then, so we talked about minding your mindset, getting clarity, making a plan, getting support. And then a piece of that, and the 5th one, is that it starts with a call, right? And so whether that's I need to reach out to a mentor and ask them for career advice, or I need to reach out to Jessica and talk with her about my money so that I know how I can make a move, or Estelle to think about how you want to change your image. Those are all great things that you can do. We at Apochromatic, twice a year, we do complimentary legal career clarity calls. We're happy to do one of those to talk with you about your legal career, and whether you are at a state where you want to, or stage where you want to work with Apochromatic next year. Those are all tools that are available to you. And I think we often underestimate how many people are willing to help us and what resources are out there. So I encourage you to take advantage of those. And Keith, thank you, shared a link where you can sign up for that. So those were the 5 things I wanted to make sure I shared. I know we had a couple questions that people sent in already, and I'm sure that there's some questions here. So Keith, do you want to start us with some questions?
So I'll start with one that was sent in, and then we can go live to everyone else. So there's one here. I'm just going to read it. I'm a 2nd-year partner who thinks that this job might not actually be for me. But before I make that decision, I think I need a sabbatical just to figure out everything, because I don't have time or perspective to consider whether I can still make this work somehow. How would you go about pitching them on a sabbatical or planning a sabbatical? Finances aren't a concern, but would like to, so Jessica, you're out. But would like to have an idea on that. I guess, Amy, that probably goes to you, and then we'll go from there.
So has anybody on the call, anybody on this call done a sabbatical? I'm willing to share that experience. Okay. So we've worked with several lawyers who have gone this route. And I think particularly now that law firms claim that they have unlimited, and other employers claim that they have unlimited time off, it actually has gotten much harder to take a couple of weeks off and get in a headspace away from it. And so I think that's part of why sabbaticals are becoming more common. I think it's really, really important that you not assume that whatever amount of time you have is going to solve all the problems, right? I think people think I am going to get all this clarity. I'm going to do all this informational interview. I'm going to do this and this and this. And by the end of 3 months or 6 months, it's all going to be clear. And that can set up a situation where you are backed into a corner and have to take a job towards the end of your sabbatical because the thought of going back is just not something you want to do. So I think it's important that you leave the firm or step back from the firm on really good circumstances so that you can go back, so that you're not backed into that corner. I also think it's important that you explain to the firm how it's going to benefit the firm. And that you decide what the story is going to be. Because I just had drinks with a lawyer the other day who commented on the number of attorneys who have had nervous breakdowns at this lawyer's law firm. And that has become the story about these lawyers, about why they were taking sabbaticals. And maybe that is true and they're comfortable with that narrative. But my suspicion is that they were not proactive about establishing what narrative they wanted the firm to be sharing about their time away. So I think it's really important that you plan carefully for your time, that you're realistic about what you can get done, and then two, that you work with the firm about what the story is going to be and maintain those connections while you're gone. Some firms do require you to check in monthly or to check in towards the end. Whatever those requirements are, you want to make sure that you're meeting them so that it doesn't come back to bite you if you do come back to the firm at the end of the sabbatical. So, and again, happy to do a call one-on-one to talk about specifics too, if that's helpful.
All right, who's next? Anyone have a question? Just raise your hand or hop off mute and jump right in. Don't all talk at once. Let's get in line here. Calm down.
And Jessica shared that a client returned from a paid sabbatical and now wants to leave for good, but she's better off because she had that time. So that's great to hear. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna put my 2 cents in about the sabbatical thing, just from my career background. I think that, like you said, Amy, sometimes a lot of times it's like, oh, well, when I have this time, and in our mind, it's like this magical unicorns and fairy time that then we'll tackle it. But I think what you have to do, whether it's sabbatical or otherwise, is just to be very intentional about making steps towards that, because otherwise it can be kind of one of those, oh, I'll do it later. Like I know a lot of people do that way with style. It's like, oh, well, when I lose the 10 pounds or when I have the sabbatical, it's really easy to like kind of push off setting goals for you the way you want to live now. And that ends up just you putting off your life. And so I would just encourage you to be very intentional about it and protect yourself now, create your future self instead of just waiting for it to happen.
I'll ask a question. So sabbaticals have been coming up a lot in my conversations with folks. And yes, I absolutely help on the money piece, whether it's a self-paid sabbatical or whether you're taking it, within your organization, planning on coming back and, trying to make some decisions about, your future career moves. But how are those viewed in terms of, kind of future career prospects? Let's say somebody does take a sabbatical within their organization, and obviously I think it might be treated differently if it's a self-paid sabbatical outside of the organization, for basically leaving your job to take some time off for yourself. But how have you worked with clients in terms of kind of maneuvering the return to work and the on-ramping, right? Coming
Yeah.
back to something after you have taken maybe an extended break. What are some strategies that you've worked with clients, or how have you prepared people for that?
It's
Such a good
definitely
question.
different
So,
now than it ever has been. That's
yeah, yeah, that's totally
easier.
true. Yeah, it's much more common now to have some time away. And this is something that we've seen a lot since COVID, particularly. But and we worked with one client, for example, who used the time to go from being a big law partner to other folks who are in our well program or accelerators. Remember, she used her time to become a dean at a law school and make that transition. Um, and I think it can be a great time for self-reflection. But yes, if you're going back to an employer or applying to a new employer, like they don't necessarily want to hear that, right? It's still much more common to say, I was dealing with a sick parent, or I was at home having children, right? Those sorts of things. And so there are going to be some people who say, like, you took 6 months or 3 months for yourself. Wait, and you weren't like what it doesn't fall in one of these check boxes. There will still be those people. You probably don't want to work with them anyway. But I do think that you want to be thinking during that time, how do I expand my network? And how am I going to talk about it? That doesn't mean every single day you have to have a networking coffee, but doing that informational interviewing. If you decide you don't want to be in a firm, and so you start doing informational interviewing with lawyers who are, say, in-house, and then you do go back to, or you go to another private practice setting, you've now expanded your network, right? So you want to have something from that time that you can use in job interviews to explain how it's going to benefit them. And I think you also want to be confident in the way you talk about it, because there's nothing wrong with taking some time off. I mean, I took a summer off in between jobs a few years ago, and it was the first time that I had not worked for more than, I think, 2 weeks since, or been in school since I was 15 years old. And there were people then who said, like, what did you do all summer? And I was like, I worked out, I did this. And then I realized that wasn't a good answer. So I started talking about how I'd done informational interviewing, expanded my network. No one was interested in my 5Ks. So I think you want to just be thoughtful about how that's going to go. But I think you also need to just recognize that you only have one life, right? And so if that's what you need to be able to like the next phase of your career, you've got to fight for that, because nobody's going to ever tell you to do it.
Who else has a question?
I have a question for Estelle. So I would love a like first, second, and third style tip to get started, because I find it overwhelming to figure out what to wear. And some of that is I don't have distinct style preferences. So it's sort of like, yes, no, I don't really know. So how would you guide somebody to get started?
Yeah. So I would guide someone the same way I work with my clients one-on-one, and that is you want to get style clarity on your next level style. And because you have to have some kind of a direction before you're going to be able to actually shop for something, or it provides that litmus test for, does this match where I want to go with my style? And so I have a guide, and I will find the link. And if I can't do it by the time we end, I'll send it to Amy and she can get it out to people. But I have a Pinterest style guide, and it just kind of helps you figure out. I find Pinterest to be helpful just because it's very visual. And it can be what I tell my clients, and like creating kind of your vision board for your next level style is, don't overthink it. Just look at things and just be like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And once you have like 20 to 25 images on your screen, even if you think you have no style or no style specifics, you will actually start to see themes. And that's what I help point out for my clients, so that they can see, oh, I actually prefer things that are more tailored or structured, or maybe I like things that are flowier, or, one thing I'll see a lot is, apparently I need to get a pair of, brown slacks because I have like 15 on this board. It's funny. Like sometimes it'll help you with your shopping list. But it's really just getting clear on, what do you gravitate towards? Because when you wear things that light you up, then that's when you're in alignment with who you are and who you are today. So I think getting that style clarity is a really important thing to do. And then the second piece, like I said, is trying to understand how to dress your body shape. So you can probably find body shape guides online if you want to look and find some. But in general, you want to look at you can take your measurements, or you can just look at your reflection. And, typically there's 4 body shapes. There's someone who is smaller on bottom. There's someone who's smaller on top. there's someone who has an hourglass, and then there's someone who has no waist definition. So those are really pretty much the 4 body shapes. And so, if you wanted to just do it that way, then you could kind of figure out, okay, if I have a very defined waist, then I need to find clothes that actually bring the waist in, because otherwise you're going to look really boxy. So it's just figuring out, like, thinking in your mind, like, how can I create like the look of an hourglass in my style and in the clothes and how they fit me. I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but I'm just trying to kind of give you a broad brush. If I were trying to guess and, not wanting to hire someone, like, this would be something I would look for. But obviously, hiring someone who's an expert is going to be your best bet. And then the third thing is just kind of figuring out, like, what colors do you wear that you get the most compliments on? That's usually like, so a lot of times people will say, oh, I have this one dress, it's not even that great, but every time I wear it, I get compliments. Chances are it's probably because it's one of your best colors. So I have found that the older I get, whatever colors I'm wearing closest to my face, they either make me, light up my face, or they make me look tired and that I haven't gotten good sleep. And so when you wear those colors that actually brighten your face and make you feel good, then that's just another strategic advantage you have in what you wear for clothes, and like what you wear. Like Amy and I helped Amy do her color analysis, and she showed me the pictures. Like, she was very vibrant in like the reds and the blues, and she was wearing a time that it was like a camel color. And she's like, I'm blending into the background. It's like not doing anything for me. And so just kind of figure those things out.
I looked ill. It's horrible.
Well,
I was like, why didn't
that.
anybody tell me? I look great.
Not good. Well, because if you don't think about it, like, you would have no reason to know that, right? And so that's kind of like the formula for having a wardrobe you love. And so I guess the easiest thing to do is the style direction, because you can do that by doing this Pinterest board. When you have that Pinterest board, you have a visual representation of, this is where I want to go with my style. Then you can go to your closet and you can look through pieces and hold it up and go, does this match my style? And if it doesn't, it needs to go, because otherwise you're just going to keep buying the same stuff you hate and you're not going to make any improvement. And so having that litmus test of the vision board, it's like, okay, this isn't moving in the direction of what I want, or I really got to stop doing this because I hate this. And then you can clean out those pieces that don't match your vision, and you'll have a better idea of what you need to shop for to have a fully functional wardrobe. Is that helpful? I know it's a lot of information to take in.
Thank you. No, I like having a formula. It's very helpful.
Good. Well, I will get that link to Keith and Amy about the Pinterest guide, and it's just a free link I have, and you can just sign up and I'll email it to you.
I never use Pinterest, and I found it super helpful to do that exercise.
Yeah, we have to ask ourselves what we want. As women, we're so used to doing everything for everyone else. Sorry, Keith. I'm all like, women power. That's
Basically,
true.
gray jacket, gray suit, blue shirt. Just that's where it is. Estelle, do you have a website to schedule a call or consult with you?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to put Jessica and Amy's in the chat right now. And
there we go.
If you add yours, that'll perfect. So really do encourage everyone to take advantage of those calls, because you can get some one-on-one time to figure out what exactly 2025 is going to look like for you. It's a great time to do that right now before the total chaos of the holiday season starts, and you get a little bit of time to think about those goals that you have. We do a goal achievement webinar every year at the beginning of the year, and it's always a good idea to go into January 1st having a little bit of an idea on what you want to do, because otherwise all of a sudden it's February 28th and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I was gonna write those goals and I didn't yet, so why not start now? All right.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, be intentional about it while you're not in a hurry. Like, that's what I love about working with my clients. It's like, we're going to create a style you love, not because there's a looming event that you have to go to tomorrow and you're running to Macy's and buying the least horrible thing you can find, which is what we do. And then you hate it. And it's more shit that you put in your closet that you never wear again. So, like, just take the time to, like, when you're not in a hurry, to make good choices. And then you're going to have a wardrobe you love. Sorry. Go ahead, Keith. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, from a finance perspective, I'm sure, Jessica, it's going to be a completely stable year next year. Probably nothing will change at all in any way, shape, or form. And so call and find out what you should do in the finance front. And Amy, Obviously there's a lot of moving and stuff available now. So do any of you have any final words you want to add on?
I just wanted to say that thank you, Estelle and Jessica, for being willing to do this. We pulled this together because we knew that, especially after the election, there were a lot of people feeling like, oh my gosh. And we wanted to help people start thinking towards the future rather than um, everything else. And so hopefully you found a strategy or two that you can adopt to help you get started with 2025 on a better foot and be able to up level. But I have done calls with Jessica and with Estelle. They're both fabulous and highly recommend reaching out and making one of those free calls if it might be helpful to you, because we love to do them, and all three of us really want to help, and I know Keith does too. So however we can be helpful, let us know.
All right. Well, thank you for joining, and hope to talk to you soon.
Have a great afternoon.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Keith, do you want to stop the recording?
Yep.